Welcome to another episode of Dan the Road Trip Guy, the podcast where we dive into the stories that make life an adventure. I'm your host, Dan Neal, and each episode I sit down with my guests to chat about their first cars, unforgettable road trips, career journeys, hobbies, bucket list dreams, and a sprinkle of life advice every now and then. Whether you're a seasoned traveler or just love a good story, join us as we explore the roads less traveled and the tales that come with them. Buckle up and let's hit the road. All right, I am on a fun road trip today. I am on with my firstborn, Lauren. Thanks to her, this podcast actually started in 2022. When we were on a road trip to Florida, she encouraged me to kick this thing off, and that's exactly what we did. We interviewed each other as we traveled down the road. Then she's been on one other time. And now we're going to talk about a trip she made this year, the spring of 2024, when she made a trek to Tijuana, Mexico. Welcome to the show, Lauren.
Thank you for having me back.
It's always a pleasure to have you back. We see each other often, but this makes it even more fun.
It's kind of crazy to think that it was 2.5 years ago, the first episode. I was going to say, time passes very quickly.
Time passes quickly and stories are made and memories are created.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what we're going to talk about, and I've been wanting to talk to you about it for several months, was a trip you made to Tijuana, Mexico.
Yes.
Tell us first, Lauren, why Tijuana? You're a world traveler, but why Tijuana?
It was very much a last-minute trip. I think the flight was booked maybe 2 days prior. A friend of mine was crossing the U.S. Mexico border in Tijuana to be reunited with her husband, who had already been in the U.S. for several months. They had been apart for 6 months, I believe. She does not speak English. It made sense that somebody would go meet her in a totally new environment. She'd be crossing the border into San Diego. There's just a lot of complexities about navigating the U.S., especially the transportation system. It would have been a very overwhelming environment to do that alone. I had the flexibility in my schedule of all of our mutual friends. I was glad to be able to do it.
Of course, being the traveler you are, you would never turn down a trip, right?
No. I'm always up for an adventure.
You just recently reminded me, your little suitcase, your away luggage, we'll give a shout out to away luggage, has been to 6 continents.
It has, which is wild. I'd like to calculate the number of trips it's been on with me. It's been a lot of places.
Been a lot of places. And right now it's stuck in Haiti, correct?
Yes, my checked bag. I just returned from Haiti a few weeks ago, and unfortunately, because of the current political environment, flights were suspended into Haiti from the U.S. A Spirit airline flight was shot at by gangs as it was descending into Port-au-Prince, and so all U.S. airlines pulled out of Haiti, and we were evacuated on a cargo flight. Unfortunately, we only had 50 pounds each to bring back with us, and my luggage weighed 90 in total because my camera equipment weighed 30. And so I had to leave my checked bag and some of my clothes behind, which is really not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. But yes, my trusty suitcase was left behind.
But we're confident at some point you're going to be reunited with that piece of away luggage.
Yes, it sounds so silly as a material possession, but there's just so many memories attached to it. I hate to see it go entirely.
You left from Cincinnati out to San Diego, right?
I did. I don't recall if there was a layover. I went straight to the border.
You went straight to the border, but I thought at first you might have to Uber down, but I believe, did you not find transportation there?
I did, yes. I found the train, a great public transportation system, in my opinion. It takes you right down to San Isidro, I believe is what it's called. It's right there at the border. It drops you off, and then you quite literally walk across.
You walk across into another country. Have you ever done that before?
Yes, I have never done that. Yeah, it was a very unique experience. It was overwhelming, if I'm being honest, because the ease in which you can cross over the border from the U.S. to Mexico it's just overwhelming. You can hardly anything is checked. I don't even remember showing my passport, which was true the other time I've been across the border. You don't have to show your passport because it's so close. But then to think of all the people who are waiting on the other side and how difficult it is to cross back into the US.
Mm.
That was just the juxtaposition of that experience, and knowing that I don't know, this like very small geographical location holds so much weight and power. That was a very interesting thing for me.
And you just had the freedom to walk over while the folks on the other
Exactly.
side are struggling to get here.
Exactly.
Do you remember how much that ride cost you to get down to the border?
Not much. I would say perhaps $5. I don't know. There was a free bus that took you to the train station, and then the train was probably about $5.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I booked you a place there near the border and near your friend.
Yes, in Tijuana. You helped me find the place. Yes.
In Tijuana.
Yes.
That's correct. Yeah. And
yes.
I'm like trying to find the perfect place, at least has a few stars and some reviews, and it's safe.
Yes. I am like, all the memories are coming back now.
Yeah. And you arrived there. I remember you told me you arrived, and I think someone met you at the door, maybe.
Yes, well, I had to walk a ways, probably a half a mile with my luggage in tow. I remember on my way to the hotel walking and seeing the line of people who were waiting on the other side. There's there's the lanes of cars that are lined up to get into the US from Mexico, but then there's also a walking path as well, and just the line. It was wild because it took no time to cross into Mexico, but again, like knowing how long it would take to cross back over. Yes, with luggage in tow, I walked to the hotel, and I believe on the street corner, a ways from the hotel, this security guy was waiting outside for me, and he knew my name, and I was like, well, I guess this is the place.
I hope so anyway, right?
I guess this is it. He yes, and he led me to the check-in, got me checked in, walked me back to my room, which was behind. There was like an initial gate. There was my room, which was also locked. It just was kind of like, okay, I have never been to Tijuana. I don't really know the level of insecurity or the degree of which it is insecure, but it was like, okay, this is extra precautious.
Yeah, we would look up later how much crime there is in Tijuana. We didn't know at that point.
Yes. Maybe a little naive in that sense, but for the best that we did not know that prior to.
Yeah, probably best,
Yes.
My adventurous girl. Checked in and then decided to go out and find your friend?
Yes. So I checked in, I dropped my luggage off. I believe I just took my backpack with me. My friend had sent me the name of the hotel she was staying at. It was essentially across the city. I think it was like a 25-minute walk.
Okay.
And it was broad daylight. I have my location shared with you all, my parents, my friends. And so I went out and made my way over to my friend. Anytime you see a city on foot, it's always much more interesting, right? Because you're experiencing like real life and what's happening day to day. I passed all sorts of different kinds of people, and it was really interesting. And I always encourage people whenever they travel to go any other way than by car, because you're just going to get a much better sense of a place. And that's what happened here. And so anyway, finally I arrived at the hotel. It was more of a hostel. I text my friend to come down, and she does. And we just like have this embrace for what felt like minutes. I'm sure it was not that long, but it was beautiful. I had not seen her in years. She and her family were very dear friends while I lived in Haiti. And that was just one of those moments you don't forget. And we tried then to convince the receptionist to let me inside the actual hotel. And neither of us really spoke great Spanish. She spoke much better Spanish than I did. It was like a little bit of back and forth because she didn't want me to come in because I wasn't staying there. And we were like, I'm not staying. I'm not spending the night. I'm just going to spend a little bit of time. Eventually, another person who was standing, in our vicinity helped convince the woman to let me in. It was essentially this hotel was home to people who were waiting for appointments at the border to cross into the US. So when I say hotel, that might be a little bit exaggerated. I mean, this is very basic accommodations. We got into my friend's room. It's the kind of place where you bring your own sheets and pillows. Like it's just there were 4 full queen size mattresses on the floor. They had their own linens. They cooked their own food. It was that sort of environment. There were 2 couples and my friend staying in this room. One of the couples had a son who was about 12 years old. So there were 6 people in this room. We immediately, when I got into the room, they had food waiting for me. As it just made me smile because it's just so customary, right? Like it's a love language to feed people that you care about. And so it was like the warmest welcome. We sat on the bed eating, our lunch together and just catching up and hearing the experiences that they've all just gone through. It's just wild you're in the US in your comfortable home that same morning, and then by the afternoon you're in this totally different environment. It's like, again, I have no other word than like overwhelming.
Yeah, because there's no direct flight from Haiti to Mexico. It's a journey.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, everybody had a different story. Some people had traveled what people might not be aware of. Essentially, after the earthquake, so many Haitians migrated from Haiti to Brazil, to Chile, and in search of employment. And so a lot of people have made the journey from South America to the border. And that is a very, very tumultuous journey. You pass through the Darien Gap, which is one of the most, if not the most dangerous migrant crossings in the entire world. Thousands of people are crossing this section of South America to Central America daily. So yeah, it was just alarming. It always is to hear these firsthand accounts of people who have gone through more than we could ever even imagine.
Yeah, all trying to get to a better life.
Exactly. I was just going to say nobody leaves home unless they're forced to. I think that's probably the biggest misconception, is that it's not that people are choosing this for themselves, is that they have no other choice. It's like everybody just wants to go home.
Yeah.
But until then, of course, you're going to search out a better life for yourself and your family.
Sure.
And that's what is happening in this situation.
So we'll fast forward. You spend time with them. I believe you even went out to the ocean, best I remember.
We did. Yes. When you go, essentially what I've gathered, there is a large migrant community in Tijuana of people who have not been able to make it across the border. But for most people, it's just a stop along the way. So it's very quick. It's temporary. And I asked this group that I was with if they had yet seen the ocean from Tijuana, and none of them had. I said, let's go. We're going to the ocean. So we hopped into Ubers, and it wasn't terribly far. It was probably 15 minutes. We just hung out on the beach, and I've never been to Tijuana, but to see the wall extend into the ocean was really, really eye-opening. It was like this strange juxtaposition of people enjoying life on the what would you call it, a boardwalk. There's all sorts of vendors selling food and drinks, and we bought like a skewer with grilled octopus on it because they wanted to try something new. And
sure,
it was just, yeah, it was a very interesting experience. And my friend and I, we sat for a long time, and it was like the first time she was able to even let her guard down.
Hmm.
I mean, it was a pretty intense emotional conversation. I too believe there's like so much power in being by the water. And so just that like environment was, yeah, I guess really powerful,
Yeah.
like, and getting to see this 12-year-old, like he had so much fun running through the water. And I enjoyed that very much.
Hmm.
We spent probably 2 hours at the beach, and then before, we made our way back to the hotel.
Spent the night there. You slept well. You
I did not sleep well. It was very loud. I actually did not sleep well. It was that is something I remember. It was very loud.
Yeah, well, it's Tijuana.
Yeah, exactly.
Get up the next day. Her appointment's the next day.
Okay, so I was told to meet my friends at 9 a.m.
Okay.
and we didn't know exactly when the appointment would be. So I met them down there. We like no one's really lined up at this point. People are just kind of hanging out, slowly gathering. So a couple of us went, we found something to eat. We
Okay.
came back, and yeah, we're just hanging out for a while. And then an officer comes out, everybody lines up. There's two lines
Hmm.
essentially. There is a line of people from, I'm pretty sure, if I recall correctly, there's a line of people specifically from Haiti, and then there's a line of people everywhere else.
Okay.
And
Hmm.
there were probably 200 people lined up this morning, and everyone's in a group of 9. And I don't remember exactly why 9, but basically you had to fill out these forms as a group prior to. So the officer is going through the line. He is, checking off one by one everyone's paperwork. Something interesting that happened was the group that was standing in front of us, the young girl, she was like basically designated as in charge of doing all their online paperwork. And for some reason she did something wrong, and it was just this moment of, I was able to translate for her and help her communicate to the officer that they were there legally and that they had been approved for this appointment.
Okay.
And that was very interesting. Yeah, just like there's so many layers to this that obviously we don't think about as people who are U.S. born.
Right.
Eventually, I parted ways with my friends, but specifically my one friend,
Right. Yeah.
and
You made new friends
I
while you were
made
there.
new friends, but I made sure that we had shared one another's locations with each other,
Hmm.
because when you cross into another country, you're not necessarily going to have service. And so we shared one another's locations. I left and made my way to the line that I was supposed to cross through, which, by the way, I barely made it because it was a Sunday and it closes at 12:45, I
Oh,
believe
wow.
it was.
Okay.
And I stayed until about 11:30. Yeah, I barely made it through. I think I made it through with like 5 minutes to spare. So basically, if you don't make it through this walking line, then you have to go through the car lanes, and the line of traffic was so long.
Yeah, we'll
So
we'll get to those long lines of traffic a little bit later.
yes,
But
yes.
yeah, so for you folks visiting Tijuana, you want to make sure you get back across the border into the U.S. before the walkway closes.
I make it across. I'm hanging out like right across the border. There's a few different businesses. A coffee shop is one of them. I go, I get a coffee. I'm sitting there for a bit, and these two border control officers come in. And I was like, hey, I have a friend who's got an appointment. I'm just curious what time I can anticipate her coming through. Because I'm like, oh, it'll be like an hour. And they literally laughed in my face. They're like, oh, it will be hours. And they were like, it might not even be today. It could be tomorrow. And she might not even come through this exit. She might come through there was like basically like an east and west exit.
Oh,
She
okay.
might come through the other exit. So now I'm like, oh gosh, okay. Well, I will not be sitting here all day. So I thought I'll take my things to the hotel where we were going to be staying for the night in San Diego. and I will come back.
Right.
I get on that same train. I make it we were staying in Old Town in San Diego, drop my things off. I had lunch, and then I was kind of timing it out because they said, like, be back by about 6:30. I was like,
Okay.
okay. And I think by the time I got through the line, it was, I can't remember. It was probably like 1:30. So, I had significant time to spend. And so I thought, okay, I'll leave this hotel around 6, take an Uber because, again, it was Sunday and the train stopped running
Oh,
at like 4 p.m. or something.
okay.
I was like, oh, I'll just take an Uber down and I'll leave it around 6. I'll certainly be there in plenty of time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you kind of knew where you were going. You'd been there once. So.
Yes, exactly. And of course, this is where things go awry. Uber driver picks me up. I should have known when he didn't. It was the kind of situation where I had to walk 2 blocks to get to the car because for some reason he couldn't find me. Maybe that should have been my initial red flag.
Yeah.
I get in the car. It's a nice car. He's going on about, I don't even know what. I am the kind of passenger who does not like to talk.
Right.
Or converse with the driver.
Okay.
It's not because I don't want to engage, but I just like, I like to put my headphones in. It's like on the plane. I don't really like to converse in these environments. But this man was very chatty and wanted to tell me all about himself. So he's chatting away. He lives not too far from the border, telling me about his kids. I don't even know what else. I don't know. We missed the exit.
Yeah, I'm assuming there's a big sign, right, that says, this is it, get off here, or you're in Mexico.
Surely there is a big sign.
Yeah.
Should I have been tracking via my map? Probably so. But again, he was so chatty and I was trying to engage. Yeah, we missed the exit and we start driving into Mexico. And it's like, the lanes are growing. It's just like, there's more and more lanes. And I said, we're driving into Mexico. And he said, oh, don't worry. There will be a spot where we can turn around. I don't think that's how it worked. We keep driving and we're like, we are going in. I'm like, oh, no, we're not coming out. We're not turning around. So I am, of course, freaking out because I've already seen the lane of traffic that's coming back into the U.S. And my friend could come out at any moment. And I am like panicking that she is going to come out and I will not be there and I will not be able to get in touch with her. We just keep driving into Mexico. There are so many cars and his maps are just like taking us in circles.
Yeah, by the way, we're watching from here because we've got Find You on our phone and I am watching you drive in circles. And you're messaging us, but yes, you're driving in circles.
In circles. And eventually, I believe I'm trying to think, like, if we kept going in circles or if we eventually just, like, made our way to the back of the line. We were stopped by a policeman at some point in time. At some point in time during this debacle. And yeah, my friends, my parents are texting me, my friends are texting me, like, what is going on? And I'm honestly less concerned about myself and I'm more concerned about
your
my
friend. Yeah.
Yes. And this police officer stops us, asks for the driver's license, perhaps I don't think he asked for his passport. I think his license. This driver, shame on him, does not speak Spanish. He has lived on the border for how many years? I can't remember what he told me, but did not speak any Spanish. We're sitting there for, I don't even know, maybe 10 minutes. Like police officer goes away. He comes back. Finally, he lets us go, but he's like, you have to go to the back of the line. And I was like, are you kidding me? So we turn around and we make our way to the back and the maps are telling us it's going to be like 2.5 hours of traffic. And that's why I'm also panicking because I don't think we have 2.5 hours to spare.
Right.
So we get in the back of the line. At the exact same location, a second police officer stops us. And this is when I'm like, I am panicking. Again, the police officer takes the driver's license. I whip out Google Translate because I'm like, this man, the driver, is useless to me at this point.
Yeah.
I am going to try and converse with this police officer. I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure I got a little emotional. Genuinely, because I just like, it was so frustrating being in this environment, not being able to communicate. Obviously, there's miscommunication. And I'm like, this is the driver's fault. I should not be back in Mexico.
Yes.
We passed by all the sites that I had already seen. I was like, oh, I just saw this morning. And here I am back in Mexico. Yeah, it was, again, a back and forth, maybe another 10, 15 minutes. I don't remember, but the police finally let us go. We get back in the line. And this driver, he's like, oh, I am supposed to have a date tonight. And I'm like, I don't really care. I have much, much more important things to attend to. And he whips out, he's got like a jar of peanut butter in the car. I don't remember what he ate with it, maybe some apple slices. And he turns on, he's got a screen in the front of his car.
Yeah.
He turns on Netflix. Like he has done this before. I was so upset. And then, in the midst of all this, my friend texts me, she has made it across the border. And I'm like, oh my gosh, please stay where you are. Do not leave. It's getting dark at this point.
Right.
So we're making our way through the line. Driver thinks it's a good idea to get into the global entry lane. He doesn't even have his passport on him. I thankfully had my backpack, and I always carry my, passport and global entry card when I'm traveling internationally. But we get in this lane. My friend is still texting me. She says, there's a bus here. It's taking everyone else. Should I get on the bus? I'm like, no, please don't get on the bus. I am coming. I will meet you, where you are. Just stay there. We are inching our way forward. Thankfully, the global entry line was much quicker than the standard line. But then we were stopped by an initial, again, a border patrol officer, and he asked to see the driver's global entry. Obviously, he didn't have it. I showed mine, and that's how we got through.
Wow.
And I'm like, please, let us pass through. But again, this border patrol officer was quite friendly. He waved us through, and then we got to the second patrol officer who would let us into the U.S. And again, the alarming thing about this was that officer told the driver, he said, well, next time it's going to be a $3,000 fine. How privileged.
Yes.
You don't even have your passport. How easily you can get into the U.S. You know what I mean? That's
Right.
what really, it's just, again, it's like this, the juxtaposition of it all. Like, how is that possible? It seems very unfair. Anyway, we passed through. I was so excited to leave this man. I think we'd been together for 3 hours at this point. And you know what? He still charged me.
He still charged you. Huh.
I did not leave a tip, you better believe, but he charged me. And I don't remember. I disputed it with Uber, but I don't remember if I got refunded. But anyway, he drops me off. I see my friend. We reunite. I call a different Uber this time. I tell this Uber driver once we get into the car what just has happened, and he was flabbergasted. He was like, is that man? I don't remember. He probably had some choice words, but he's like, you cannot miss the sign. How do you drive back into Mexico? We make it to the hotel. My friend, exhausted, just crashes. I go get us some food. I bring it back. And my favorite part about this is the next day she enjoyed, I got us tacos, and she enjoyed the food so much that we ended up going back to the same place for lunch. And it was like, she had been in Mexico for several months. It was a much different experience for her, of course. She was at the mercy of wherever she was staying, and life was just really challenging. When we had lunch the next day, she was like, this is the first time I'm, and we're in the US, we're in San Diego, but she said, this is the first time I'm actually getting to experience Mexican culture for the first time and enjoy it. And that was really, really impactful to me, because it's like, as somebody who loves to travel, how often I mean, like that is my experience in traveling. I do it for the enjoyment of it, but for so many people, it's out of necessity and survival, and they don't have necessarily the luxury of getting to experience another culture. And it was a beautiful moment, and eventually we made our way to the airport and flew to be reunited with her husband.
Yeah.
And
She hadn't
yeah,
seen in 6 months.
exactly. And that in and of itself was like such a meaningful encounter. I mean, I photographed it and I'll remember that, one of those memories that you'll treasure forever.
Forever.
Yeah.
And she really
Yeah.
hadn't seen anybody she knew for months.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Overall, it was, I mean, when I look back on this year, it is favorite doesn't really feel like the right choice in words because a very unique experience, but it is the most memorable experience I had from this past year. It's not lost on me how how many people are trying to get into the US and how easy it is to cross, back into Mexico.
Well, Lauren, I've been wanting to record this for a while, so thank you for spending a little time with me. I wish we were in the car headed out on a road trip someplace, but we're still going to do that.
Yes, we sure will at some point.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to Dan, the Road Trip Guy. I hope you enjoyed our journey today and the stories that were shared. If you have any thoughts or questions or stories of your own, I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. Don't forget to share this podcast with your friends and family and help us to spread the joy of road trips and great conversations. Until next time, keep driving, keep exploring, and keep having those amazing conversations. Safe travels. And remember, you can find me on the internet at dantheroadtripguy.com.